LWO1 WeatherNet. Liftoff conditions looking pretty good.
ESTS is ready for launch.
Ignition. Liftoff.
Falcon 9 has cleared the tower.
Ten, 9, 8,
Side booster ignition.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Now let's listen into the terminal count and watch as Falcon 9 takes our stack of Starlink satellites into space.
Stage 1's startup pressures.
T-minus 15 seconds.
Falcon 9 is configured for flight.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 4,
Station carrying our stack of Starlink satellites to orbit.
Power and telemetry.
Max-Q is the next major event coming up here shortly, which will now be throttling down the engines, the M1D engines on that first stage for. Max-Q is the maximum aerodynamic pressure that the vehicle sees on ascent.
Vehicle is supersonic.
And the weather, again, is looking beautiful, clear skies with an amazing view of Falcon on ascent there.
Max-Q.
There's that call out that we have passed through Max-Q. So in about a minute, we'll have 3 events happening back to back. That'll be main engine cutoff, or MECO, followed by stage separation and SES-1, or second engine start 1. Now MECO is where we shut down all 9 of those M1D engines on the first stage that you see burning there on your screen. That's in preparation for the second event, which is stage separation.
MVAC is chilling in.
Just heard that call out that MVAC chillin' has begun. Now stage separation is where the first stage separates from the second stage, and first stage will make its way back to Earth in an attempt to land on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, while stage 2 continues on its journey with the third event, second engine start 1. That's where we light up that MVAC engine, and it will propel the second stage along with the Starlink satellites to their targeted drop-off orbit. Just under 20 seconds or so away from those 3 events, that's MECO, stage separation, and SES-1. You should be able to see MECO here in a few seconds with those 9 M1D engines shutting down here shortly.
And MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition and throttle up.
And there we've had main engine cutoff and stage separation. You can see that from the ground tracking view there. We did have a good call out of second engine start 1 on the second stage.
Fairing jettison confirmed.
And we heard the call out for fairing deploy. And it looks like we don't have those onboard camera views, but we can still see the first and second stage on your screen there. Now, as a reminder, we will be attempting to recover the fairing halves today with our contracted recovery vessel named Sheila Bordelon.
Acquisition of signal, Bermuda.
And it does look like fairing separation was good. Now as Stage 2 takes our Starlink satellites to their targeted drop-off orbit, Stage 1 will make its way back to Earth by executing 2 burns. The first is the entry burn. That's where 3 of the M1D engines will reignite. This helps to slow the stage down as it re-enters the upper part of the Earth's atmosphere. Now, the second burn is the landing burn, and this is the single engine burn that brings the vehicle's speed down rapidly in order to land on the drone ship, and that is that center E9 engine, which is just powerful enough to slow the vehicle down to touch down on that drone ship.
Second stage is following the nominal trajectory.
And we do hear that call out that second stage is looking nominal. Unfortunately, we do not currently have any onboard views of that second stage at the moment, but everything is still looking nominal so far.
If you're just joining us here, we did have a successful liftoff of our Stage 1 from Falcon 9 from
Stage 1
Cape
FTS is safe.
Canaveral SLS-40, and we're currently Stage 2. We do not have the camera views right now, but we do have confirmation that it is still looking good. Again, our Stage 2 is delivering our Starlink satellites to low Earth orbit. And that's our stack of 60 Starlink satellites.
Entry burn shut down.
Second stage continues to follow the nominal trajectory.
We just heard that call out that Stage 1 entry burn was successful, and there you can see we do have our Stage 2 camera view finally back, and it is looking good there with that MVAC nozzle glowing. And there's our Stage 1 view back on our left, as it continues to cruise down, getting ready for the start of its landing burn in about 30 seconds here. You can see those hypersonic grid fins of the first stage there on your left, and they control and help orient that first stage as it comes back down to Earth.
Stage 1 transonic.
Again, Stage 1 will be targeting landing on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You. And right before landing, it will deploy 4 carbon fiber landing legs.
Start of terminal guidance.
At the start of Stage 1 landing burn, so burn will last for 30 seconds. You can see it coming down towards the Atlantic Ocean there. What a beautiful view from that Stage 1 camera.
Stage 1 flight deployed.
What an amazing view. What an amazing view of that Stage 1 landing burn. We got our cameras back just in time for that. And this marks our 79th successful recovery of an orbital class rocket. And the 7th recovery of this particular booster.
Expected loss of signal, Kate.
We had an expected loss of signal there, but
Nominal orbital insertion.
we did have confirmation of second engine cutoff and a good orbit. And now Stage 2 is going to coast in this orbit for the next 35 minutes or so. And while that happens, take a look at this animation showcasing where we are in the coast phase, and we'll see you back here at T plus 45 minutes for second stage relight.
Expected loss of signal, Bermuda. Expected loss of signal, Newfoundland. acquisition of signal, Goonhilly, England.
Welcome back to the webcast for our 24th Starlink mission from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. So far, we've had an on-time liftoff at 12:34 p.m. Eastern Time. Our first stage came back and landed on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You. And now our second stage is awaiting relight, or SES-II, second engine start 2, in just a few seconds here. And it'll just be a 1-second burn. It's a very quick burn. It may not look like much on your screen, but it does take us to our targeted drop-off orbit. So we should hear that call out coming shortly here. And there you saw it very quickly on your screen. We did get that green color flame. That's that T-TEB that I mentioned. We did have SES-II and SECO-II. Waiting for confirmation of good orbit. And we did confirm a good orbit. So again, our Starlink sats will ultimately end up in a LEO, or low Earth orbit, about 550 kilometers above the Earth's surface, which is different than your typical geostationary or GeoSat, which orbits roughly 36,000 kilometers above Earth. And we have another 15-minute coast phase before we deploy our next batch of Starlink satellites into orbit. And during this time, the spacecraft will start to spin along its central axis, giving the Starlink satellites the momentum that they need to space themselves out over time after they deploy. So while this happens, sit back and enjoy some more space jams. We'll see you back here at T+1 hour and 3 minutes.
Expected loss of signal, Diego Garcia.
Welcome back. If you're just now joining us, we had an on-time liftoff at 12:34 p.m. Eastern Time. Our first stage booster had a successful 7th flight, as well as landed for its 7th time and the 79th recovery overall. Stage 2 completed its 2 burns to enable reaching the targeted drop-off orbit, and now we are coming up on the deployment of our Starlink satellites here shortly. And we are waiting to see if we can get some live views. Otherwise, if we don't, we should be able to hear the call out for payload deploy. And that should be coming here in just under 20 seconds or so. And again, our second stage was spinning in preparation for the deployment of these Starlink satellites, and that gives them some momentum to spread themselves out over time after they deploy.
Payload deployment confirmed.
There we go. There's that call out, and we do have a visual of those Starlink satellites drifting away from second stage out in space. Now again, this is their drop-off orbit. So shortly, they will deploy their solar array, and over the next few days and weeks, they will distance themselves from each other and use their onboard ion thrusters to make their way to their operational orbit.
And with that, that brings our webcast to a close. Thank you to the Range and FAA for supporting today's mission. If you're interested in Starlink service, head over to starlink.com and sign up. And as always, thanks for joining us and have a great afternoon.